The Mandalorian, Chapter 17, the writers are effing with us. It was the shortest episode, had to be, right? Felt like it. Did it feel short to you, brother?
I didn't think about that. And to preface, or as an asides, we have not talked about anything to do with this. We never chat until we are face to face digitally. So I didn't think about that. I felt like it was a safe episode. I think it was a good, safe first episode, but I didn't think about time.
I felt robbed because this, as you know, there was an episode of The Mandalorian that was on Boba Fett. The other show, The Book of Boba Fett, there was 2 episodes that were basically Mandalorian episodes, and I wish that would have been the opening of season 3. Because I feel like this episode was just catching everybody up for those who didn't watch The Book of Boba Fett.
Okay, interesting. I guess I will process that as we go along and then ask you, did you think that the helmet was for Grogu? Was that your initial thought when you saw that little helmet?
No, my initial thought, and I feel a little silly now, but my initial thought was that it was a flashback. Which, looking back on, is kind of stupid because you had Vizsla there and you had the armor there, so that wouldn't make any sense. But I thought it was a flashback. Yeah. Good acting by that kid. I thought he was great. The monster came out of nowhere, and then you had Mando and Grogu in their Nubian ship, which has really grown on me, especially seeing Grogu pop out of the bag he used to be for. Yeah, adorable. Awesome.
So I will say, just from a obviously filmmaking standpoint, they use this a lot. It's so prevalent. You know, it's Deus ex machina, which of course is all is lost, and then at the last second we're saved. So the same thing happened when Grogu and the Rancor saved everything in the Book of Boba Fett. But I wasn't excited about the opening sequence because I knew that the N1 with Mando and Grogu would come in and do something. So I'm just tired of that trope, and be watching for it. It's everywhere. It's the quintessential Raiders of the Lost Ark ending, which is exactly what Deus Ex Machina is, right? It's like God coming down and saving everybody. So, but
Solo, I completely disagree. I thought the opening scene was the best part about the episode, and I thought it was downhill after that.
Interesting. My favorite part was when the Kowakian monkey lizards were in the trees.
Well, all right, maybe it was my second favorite.
And I had to look that up, but we're talking about Salacious Crumb, Jabba the Hutt's crummy little toady. Those things haunted my nightmares because they're bigger. The ones in the trees were bigger and they freaked me out. And I'm a very old person, so even that was like horrific.
And digital is scarier than little puppets.
That's true. So you're saying the introduction was the best part of the episode?
I think so. Yeah, of the 24-minute, the shortest episode in the history of Star Wars.
It was a sitcom. It was this week on Mando. So so you don't miss the Razor Crest. Going back to I love the new Starfighter, but I think
Razor Crest was cool. I wasn't as crushed as you were in the Boba Fett episode on Mando. What was that called? The Tragedy, I think. The Tragedy, when the season 2, when the Razor Crest was destroyed.
I don't know.
I was disappointed, but yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's raising the stakes, but it's certainly something where something happens that maybe we weren't expecting, possibly. So I like that. Can we talk about the return of one of my favorite characters, IG-11?
Yes.
I know. Look, they showed us even in the previously on.
Yes, and they didn't say previously on the Mandalorian because they had to show us stuff from Boba Fett. So they cleverly, I might add, just said previously.
Right. Well, so IG-11 sacrificed himself and clearly was blown to smithereens. And so it's hard for me to have it both ways because if I had my druthers, Candler.
I love that word. Love it when you say that.
if I had my druthers, I mean, Queel would be back somehow. Like we would somehow magically rub some salve, some kind of Bactine salve from the lower depths of some planet, and Queel would be back because, as you know, we've talked about this. Some of these characters became in my top 10, and I'm an original trilogy devotee. Like that's all I really care about is the original trilogy. And suddenly we have these characters that I just love, and I love Queel.
With Nick Nolte's wonderful voice, he was awesome.
But they did more in a few episodes than some characters did in an entire trilogy. So IG-11 was, especially when he became the nurse droid, was just the greatest. I mean, some of that stuff is some of my favorite visuals in Star Wars when he utterly annihilates the biker scouts. And so I'll let you have the floor, but for me, it's like, okay, IG-11 is going to be back, but it seems kind of like a cheat.
I hate that they're trying to bring him back. I love seeing him as a monument. I thought that was so cool. Even if they didn't discuss it just as almost as an Easter egg, because I don't recall ever seeing a monument or a much less a droid monument in the Star Wars universe. And I thought that was incredibly cool. And then to bring him back because he doesn't trust droids, he needs this droid, and then suddenly he reverts back to his evil self. And then he's still going to try to rebuild it. I'm not looking forward to that storyline at all. But
IG-11 went full Terminator 1984, like crawling across the floor with the red eyes. That was all. That was all James Cameron, Terminator 1, which I like. We'll have to see how that plays out, but that seems a little bit far-fetched, especially that he's not blown to smithereens. I mean, he is fully intact. So that's a heavily armored droid. I don't know what blew up exactly on him. So we're getting into
I said this out loud when they talked about taking his parts. I went, what? That was what I kept saying. What? Really? That was my reaction. I said it out loud.
Did you do that when you saw that the Swamp Thing was going to be a main character, a main villain for?
That didn't bother me. I did think the Swamp Thing, but I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. That didn't bother me.
So is that alien's name Gorian Shard, and he looks like a swamp monster.
Wait, his name is Shard?
I think it's Gorian Shard. Look back. I didn't look up anything. I know there's the people that have not much to do probably already created some sort of page for this swamp creature. I
like the fact that he was dripping. It was sweat or water or whatever it was. It looked like stuff was dripping. There was definitely liquid on his face that was dripping. That was cool, I thought.
Well, we'll see him again. As you know, or may have forgotten, but obviously the Alan Moore run on Swamp Thing is my favorite comic book series of all time. Nothing beats it in terms of just, in my personal opinion, of just enjoyment and what it did to revolutionize comic book writing, and that makes me put Swamp Thing as one of my favorites. So to see something,
sorry to interrupt because you bring it up. This is not a criticism. You bring this up often, and when you bring it up, I think, God, I need to read this. Is it together in one graphic novel form?
I don't think so, but you can buy like several books that give you the Alan Moore series, and he stops after a while, and a few others take up the mantle, and it's still amazing. So this run from like 84 or so, maybe, I know I'm ruining the years, but maybe 84.
But the mid 80s.
Those couple of years were just the best. I mean, I love it. I mean, it's graphic horror. There is superhero stuff happening, but it is a completely redefining of a character, which is basically kind of the standard. A man turns into a monster, and then the monster wants to be turned back, and that's what the goal is. That is like wiped clean. And for Alan Moore to explore what he explores with this character was unbelievable to me. I've read it like 3 times over the past maybe 15 years. I pick it up and I start reading it. So that's a side.
Is that DC? Is that DC, Marvel, or something else?
It's just DC. Yeah.
Okay.
DC. And then that's Lynn Wein and Bernie Wrightson created the Swamp Thing. And I met Bernie Wrightson many years ago before he passed away, and he's one of the. I don't really like meeting. You know how people love to meet, especially these cons. You stand in line for 400,000 years to meet somebody.
You're always disappointed.
Yeah, this guy was the warmest person, and I'm sad that he's gone. Of course, but he was such a talent. His artwork's absolutely phenomenal, and the 10 minutes I got to spend with him was the best. And so that made me love the Swamp Thing even more. That that they created this, and I got the chance to chat with him about any number of things. He's done so much cool work. He did all the artwork for The Stand, the book. I even got a print of that, of some of his artwork from The Stand. So
nice.
Probably my favorite famous person meeting. I don't know what's yours, and you've got a lot, I'm sure. I don't have that many, but
I met Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard, one time. I was a little disappointed. He wouldn't take his picture with me. That's okay. I still love him.
I got a picture.
I love Picard season 3. Picard season 3, Star Trek Picard season 3 is excellent. Season 1 and 2, forget about it. I hated it, but season 3 so far, excellent.
You're a Trekker.
I am a Trekker, but I'm also a Star Wars fan. You can like both. As William Shatner once said on Conan O'Brien, he asked him about Star Wars versus Star Trek, and his response, exactly, it's a vast universe. And then it got a big laugh, and then William Shatner was surprised by the laugh, and it was very funny. All right, back to the episode. Grief Karga. I feel like they're not sure what to do with him. What are your thoughts on where his character is going?
I don't want to derail your thoughtful commentary, but the only thing I could think about were the 2 robot droids holding his cape.
Yeah, that was kind of neat. I thought neat. Anyway.
So the cape, the cloak. I think that he will. I think again, as a safe episode, as I'm calling it, we're going to see more from Grief. His obviously role has changed, so it's almost like now that he is fully in charge, he's a different type of person. So even though he obviously went heels with the pirates, he's not afraid to actually mix it up still. So I think it's just a wait and see, but he's amazing. Carl Weathers is
I love Carl Weathers. Love Carl Weathers.
National treasure. He's phenomenal. He's solid. He's been doing great work since the beginning. Obviously, his most famous role of Apollo Creed, that to me is, you can't beat the 4 movies he's in.
I had to go to therapy when his character died in Rocky IV. It was so sad.
Spoiler alert.
So sorry. But I feel like in the writing they don't know what to do with him, because he keeps saying he's high magistrate, but yet he's kind of this micromanager that has to go out and stop a gang of wanting to drink in a school, which I understand it used to be a bar. That whole thing was weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's we point to the writing. Like, what are they trying to exactly accomplish there? I think you needed those guys to make a ruckus so that we could get to Gorian Shard, the swamp monster. That connection had to be made, so something had to happen. I think it's just, again, I'm not trying to overthink what they're trying to do, but you can see what they're putting together. So there's going to be an obvious clash. I mean, that's what everything is, a setup, a build up. I mean, so that's all I really can think about when it comes to that. I didn't really think too deeply about it. I'm just glad there's going to be a toy that has a Grief Karga with a cape that has 2 robots hanging on to the cape. I mean, that's
true. I should get that.
I mean, where we look at is we see everything we see is going to be a toy. That's the beauty of Star Wars. If if you're going to be in Star Wars, heck, Bill Burr is a toy. He probably loves that. I don't have a Bill.
I'm going to add that to my wish list.
Yeah, get a Bill Burr.
So then we get to Bo-Katan, who is sitting on the throne. I mean, just sitting there on the throne, waiting for him to fly in. This scene, I thought, oh wow, we're hearing about stuff that is happening off camera, and I wish we would have seen this stuff that happened on camera.
Sure, they're gone. And,
yeah. Did it seem weird to you that she's just sitting there on the throne, literally?
So weirdly theatrical of this empty palace and again, just kind of hanging out. I don't like that kind of stuff. I think the audience is past that. You kind of get away with that back in the old days. I think we're now thinking more about that. So for that to happen, it's like, you want to see, as a, the moment before in,
Sure.
in improv or whatever. I'd like to see what's happening right before. Like, is she over there like eating, eating lunch, and she's like, oh great, here's this guy again. And like she puts everything away and kind of lays there like I've been waiting for you. So like,
Yeah.
I don't know. See, that's where like it starts to be funny, because it's like it's a silly caricature of what life is, when that happens. But again, we're watching Star Wars television, so I mean we may have a little bit of that, if we're breaking it down to the subatomic level. But it also sets up, obviously going to Mandalore. And
she mentions, sorry to interrupt, she mentions the dark saber. And then I'm reminded, oh wait, we don't see the dark saber this entire episode, even though he's got it on him.
Keep that thing. I mean, every time that thing gets wielded, like bad things happen, or at least somebody wants it and it turns into a storyline. For me, the dialogue between them is something that's always been there, but it is the idea of people that hold on very tightly to their beliefs. And that's not I'm not saying that as we all do. So, but for her to continually tell him that all this is superstitious, there's nothing magical about the waters. And so that's the self-fulfilling prophecy piece, right? If I believe it firmly, then it's true. Same with Bo-Katan. If she believes it, it's true. Like, we all have that in our hearts, right? So Mando was thoroughly indoctrinated into.
I can't tell if you're criticizing this dialogue or if you're complimenting it.
Neither. It's just a observation. I mean, what I'm saying is that if we're talking about digging deeper into what the story is about, it is about people that have the same thought process, but also have a different belief. I mean, for all the purposes, for Bo-Katan, Din Djarin's in a cult, and
Yes.
So cults are looked at unfavorably in our society, but they're rampant. And when it happens, there's a documentary, and we're going to watch it, and we're going to say, how could they have possibly gotten into this? And I can name 10 things, 10 cults that have popped up over the past at least 100 years that make everybody go, oh, isn't that the worst story? Can you believe these people did that? And
Sure.
But I mean, I think it's very easy to find weak people and it's not just weak people, but like what we think about when we think about cults is weak people following charismatic people, getting brainwashed. I mean, there's a million. Listen, go the Way Down. That's a great documentary about the rise and fall of Gwen Shamblin in that church. You've got any number of David Koresh.
A new one on Netflix I've been interested to see.
The Heaven's Gate. I mean, listen, I wish this is not something I've been thinking about. So for me to kind of rattle off, the Guyana tragedy, with the Jim Jones, all that. And again, all that ends in death. I'm not saying anything. That's the thing. This is when you start forming something in your head, but you actually hadn't thought about it. I'm not saying that the Mandalorian's cult is anything horrible, but I think that's what Bo-Katan is getting at, is like, this is too much. Like, what you're doing is way too much. You don't have to keep your helmet on forever. You don't have to do this, and this, right? It's like kind of like any number of weird things that people think they need to do, right? Like, there are people who handle snakes in churches because of a line in the Bible, right? Is that necessary? No. Do people die from snake bites? Yes. This just makes no sense. But to them, whatever it has gotten them to this point, they believe that this is exactly what they're supposed to be doing with their life. And that's what, right now, to me, Din Djarin is on another quest because he has been indoctrinated to a level that he has to do this particular act so he can get back into the good graces. And
I feel like they're setting us up for a Bo-Katan versus the Armorer. Mandalorian, no more.
interesting.
Don't you think we're going to see I feel like we're going to see the two of them fight. I predict.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that can get us into our finale of predictions as we wind down here. I think. Yeah. Do you want to go through it as we wind down and see what our predictions are?
Yes, and I swear to you, I've read no spoilers. I swear to you.
I don't read anything. That's the one thing. I mean, it's boring, and why am I listening to XYZ who knows nothing, right? Like everybody.
Well, and I've done it in the past, not for Mandalorian, but I've done it in the past, and I've always regretted it, so I've stopped doing it. All right, here's my prediction, and it's way out of left field. We will see Lando Calrissian in season 3.
Okay. That's it? Okay, great.
That's it.
Billy D. Williams is getting up there, so
I know, but you saw what they did with Mark Hamill in the Book of Boba Fett.
He deserved better than what was it called, The Rise of Skywalker?
Agreed, which is one of the reasons I think he will be in it.
I think everybody deserved better than
yes,
getting in.
Exactly.
These guys, you can tell. Listen, these people have no control because they'll just say, yes, I'll be in it, whatever. Mark Hamill, no matter how much Mark Hamill complained about being in The Last Jedi, he never once said, I have control to not be in this script, this movie.
Sure.
Like he could have read over it and go, this is awful. I can't be in this. What would they have done?
Right.
No control at all.
Right.
And even now they're trying to fix it. Like Favreau and Filoni are trying to fix it. You can obviously tell they're trying. By the way, wherever they were they on Navarro with Grief Karga and Mando? That really looks like Galaxy's Edge.
It does. It does.
The streets are Universal.
The beautiful
Studios.
vistas, as you said, the beautiful vistas.
Oh, look at these vistas. All these
beautiful vistas.
Look, go back and look at Salacious Crumbs in the trees and tell me you're not freaked out by how big they are. They're humongous. Like Salacious Crumb is like a little.
I'm a little more freaked out by the tiny droid building. By the way, Grief Karga saying Droid Smith. I've never heard that before. Droid Smith. Droid. Okay, that makes sense.
And those are all little Babu Fricks, right? So like that's another.
That reminded me of the sequel trilogy, which I wasn't happy with.
Love Babu Frick. I don't know. So
predictions.
Pain. I just wanted to say a Clubber Lang line from Rocky 3. In my own way, but not as Mr. T. Prediction, pain. I can tell you what I think the way the Mandalorian whole series is going to end. You want me to give you that?
Yeah.
So easy, in my personal opinion. He's going to go back to Swampland planet where that woman and her child were, and he's going to take off his helmet, and he and Grogu and they're going to make a family on that planet, and he's going to retire. And Grogu is not going to be any factor in shaping the galaxy, Mandalorian or Jedi. It'll just be retiring on that planet.
My prediction is, and I've said it before, they will somehow, for some reason, they will be frozen in carbonite, and then they will be unfrozen in the Rey Skywalker time period for New Adventures. That's my prediction.
Okay. New Adventures.
New Adventures.
I know there's like 12 things I wanted to say, but I can't think of any of them, so I think it's a good time for us to, unless you have any other things. Just remember, I want frogs. I want frogs.
No more frog ladies, please, for the love of all things sacred. I will say this.
No, I'm talking about the knock on the door. I like frog ladies.
Oh, we're talking about real life. We're talking about real life. I thought you were talking about Star
always
Wars.
Real life. It's always the real life, right?
The last thing I'll say about this episode is that I feel like by the time we finish the season, we could have done without this episode, not seen this episode, and the season would have totally played out. Like, I feel like you called it a safe episode. I called it a not necessary episode. There was nothing of consequence, I don't think, anyway. But we'll see.
Interesting. Well, I mean, again, time has passed, and we are into a part of Star Wars where I'm getting updates. So that means nothing, but it could be something for the computer. There we go. No updates right now. There's always something.
Yes.
But hey, to me, I mean, there's been some good things happening with Star Wars. There have been some good things happening, but The Mandalorian was what kicked it off with, like, thank goodness that there's something good that we don't feel embarrassment about, or if there's like not a lot of divisiveness, because people get so upset. We get fired up about things that don't really matter, like stories. True. But I think even I was like, gosh, dang it, I wish, like, these are the things I didn't like, and we've both been very harsh with The Last Jedi and what it did to Star Wars as the storyline goes, but also how the fans and the media getting involved and all that silly stuff that means nothing. Ultimately, I just hope everybody has fun watching these, and
Here, have fun. Mandalore is my favorite thing to happen to Star Wars since Star Wars.
So, like I said, IG-11, Queel, Grogu, and again, there's some camps, Baby Yoda and Grogu. At this point, can we just say Grogu and not Baby Yoda every second of our lives? I mean, can he just be Grogu from here on out?
My kids still say Baby Yoda. I'm going to say Baby Yoda.
He got him behind you. Like my eyes are so bad. I told you, I looked like I the first time I saw that sign, I thought it was a hamburger. That's how bad, like, my eyes are.
Yes, like, picture of Baby Yoda wanted posters behind me, or Grogu. Forgive me.
Grogu hamburger. Yeah, so he's the cutest thing since Gizmo.
Gizmo. I love it. By the way, there's a lawsuit apparently about that supposedly they stole the idea from Gizmo, which is ridiculous.
I want to see the page of the law piece, which is like the plaintiff and the defendant is like Gizmo versus Grogu. Gizmo, and actually, look, just go. You need to go. Like I said, we need a TM show-stalgia. Let's go ahead and TM Gizmo v Grogu, because that really rolls off the tongue.
I feel like I should sue them because I watched Gremlins 2, and that was probably one of the worst sequels I've ever seen.
The best thing about Gremlins 2, the new batch, is Key and Peele's episode about the script doctor and that's like their final season, basically. If they would have kept going, you'd have done more script doctor things. But if you watch the Key and Peele episode of the script doctor and the group of writers going around the table trying to figure out what to put in Gremlins 2, it's priceless. It's so good.
I got 2 words for you. I'm going to go to YouTube today and check it out. I'm Candler Budd. This is Brian Solo. We're out.